And I can think of no better segue
than the one that Job wrote.
As you know, this is the measure of an episode where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek genuine Star Trek and not just a video game. Feels like a video game at this point. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jonathan, and we do this using 3 criteria. The first one is there sci-fi in the plot? Like deep in there. It's nestled so far in there, you cannot pull it out without destroying everything that was the plot. Number 2, is that sci-fi presented in a unique or novel fashion and not just time travel tropes having to get back to the present or some other sci-fi stereotypes? Batting 1,000 right now. And number 3, is there a moral or ethical or philosophical dilemma that a character faces? I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul, and we forgot to clap. 3, 2, 1. And this week, we watched Picard, season 3, episode 8. Yeah, she said it again.
I know she did it. Yep.
She really drew it out too. It was nice.
I was hoping she would do it because she wants Jack so much too that she would be like Curacao.
I mean, she's really making a meal out of this whole takeover of the ship, right?
Oh yeah, a really solid meal.
Yeah. And the blurb. Let's see how Siri did. I don't even read it anymore. I wait to be surprised. I blindly dictated into the phone. Vadic. Wow, it did Vadic perfectly. Vadic forces Picard to make an impossible choice to deliver what he can never give or watch his crew perish. Parish. His crew perish. They are only salvation lives in the line of an old friend and an old.
And an old.
And an old.
So is it an old or is it annulled?
AN space OLD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So some good stuff in there. Some good stuff. Let's go back to Vadic for a second.
All right.
So I like me a good, fabulous Star Trek villain.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, Jonathan. But I was starting to get a little tired of it. This is season 8, and
or
she's
episode
no longer
8, one of the two.
Well, it feels like season 8 in more ways than one. And I feel like enough with the monologuing, and they even reference the monologuing in this episode. She's doing so much of it. And it just feels empty at this point because no matter what anybody says, like, hey, do you know what time it is, Vadic? Calms her down. What time is it? Funny you should ask.
Right.
Crewman. You know, it's like, does everything need to be couched in this weird, sarcastic mustache twirling? Like, can you just, like, where's the bathroom? I just need to go to the bathroom. I asked 25 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Like, I just get tired of it. I just want there to be some element of you're not just. I don't want to feel the writer behind you every single exchange.
Well, yeah. And the other part to that too. I mean, she's the cat who caught the canary, you know, and so now she's playing with her prey, but she's been doing that since episode 2, and like she's been relishing it too much for too long.
Even when she wasn't. I mean, I guess, yeah, she seems panicked when she isn't in control. And then when she's in control, she's doing this thing. But you're right. But it just feels like we never really got to know her as a well-rounded character. We just get to know her as, you know, as just this monologuing character. It could have been anybody, right? I mean, the most fun was when we got to see her backstory, and she seemed to be somewhat rounding out when we got to hear what her motivations were. But I don't know, I just got tired of it. I was just waiting for her to be done talking so we could get on with the movie.
Well, yeah, and I guess the other part too to that is in the previous episode, we didn't really learn about why she joined her benefactor. You know, like, why does she have this boss? Like, I understand why she is doing her revenge, and that's fine, but I don't think they explained why she had to team up with anyone for this revenge and why it's not a partnership, but she is the subordinate.
Right. There's something going on that we don't know. And they kind of did the same thing that Lower Decks did, which was tread water for a while until we can ramp up for the last 3 episodes, which is kind of what we're doing now. You know, the last 3 are going to be, I'm assuming, pretty high energy because Data's back, kind of.
Right.
I like that Data does not have any makeup on. He just has the eyes.
I know.
And that the eyes must be computer generated because Brent Spiner was probably, I'm not going to wear any makeup for this. FYI. I might comb my hair, but you can put the eyes in digitally. I'm just not going to wear makeup anymore. I'm not going to do it. I would have been fine with that if Data was Data. And I understand Brent Spiner doesn't want to play Data anymore, as you said. Doesn't want to do it, wants to do something different. So they gave him this new personality that incorporates all the different things, all lore and all the different things that have been programmed in. So I get it. And so he's this new person. I don't know if I like it, though. Do you like it?
So the Data and lore exchange in previous episodes where there was no two characters to bounce off of each other was amazing. Like I never really thought about the difference between Data and lore until I saw Brent Spiner playing the two in one body and seeing him transition between the two. That was fantastic. And then in this episode again, to see them dialogue with each other was amazing as well. To see Brent Spiner, play Data and play this like kind of annoyed lore as he's like getting all these things from Data, and he's like, "Thanks, that's gone." But then when they were all fused together, I still think that he is not being Brent Spiner, because I think a more accurate Brent Spiner is the con artist that he played on Night Court.
I mean, I think that Brent Spiner is acting. I just don't like. Still miss Data. I feel like I'm never going to get what I want, which is the old Data back. And I understand they're trying to get rid of people like me. I get it.
Okay, but did you feel that you got your Data when he was in the cloud, or no? Not even there.
No. Well, yeah. You mean the 35 seconds of that exchange? Yeah.
Okay. So that was the Data that you wanted, but now that he's out and he's got like the before curiosity and the lore, snark and contraction using, like you're disappointed that you won't see that Data anymore.
A little bit. I feel like what we like about Data is not the form factor of Data, but the personality of Data. There's a benevolence and an innocence and a curiosity that I feel like is no longer there, at least as far as I can tell. My sense is when they continue this season that there will be moments where he is the old Data, where he's sort of, they go to him to calculate something, or he's going to provide information, or, that kind of stuff. I'm sure that will feel more like Data, but it just felt a little disappointing because it was, he's a new character. This is a different character. So I'm sure this is the same thing that Doctor Who people feel, where this is technically the same character.
Right. This is not my Data. Yeah. They say that all the time. This is not my Doctor.
Right.
Yeah. So, but to speak to that, I don't think you're even going to get that when he's doing his calculations, just because when he was talking to Geordi and he used a contraction and Geordi said, "You just used a contraction." And he said, "No, I didn't."
Yeah.
And then kept walking, and he like kind of looks at him with a smirk or whatever it was to show that like he was actually making a joke. Like, I think that if he does have to do any calculations, he's going to do it very similar to how he did it over the intercom in the Enterprise.
Yeah. It's gonna feel like a more confident Data.
Yeah. Than an objective one, right?
Right. And I feel like this isn't going to be the Data that was in Generations, where he's just trying on his new emotions chip and he's singing and he's being, kind of like a teenager, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's good, because that was annoying. I mean, it was funny. It was funny at the time, right? But now you look back on it and we watch it and it's just sort of like, I don't really care. Stop doing that. Let's move on. That's kind of how I felt about this episode. I was waiting for all of the circumstances and the scenarios to play out, because we all knew what was going to happen. I didn't think that Vadic would die, so that was unexpected.
Spoilers, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like everything else, I was like, for the battle between lore and Data, I was kind of just waiting for that to happen. They kind of telegraphed what was going to happen, where lore overpowers Data, but Data had a trick up his sleeve and takes over lore with some sort of clever idea. I was just waiting for that to happen,
Okay, so you didn't buy into that at all?
No.
Okay. All right.
Because I would have liked lore to be around for one episode. And lore has to realize they're just going to kill me if I try and be me right now. So I'm going to come out. I'm not going to pretend I'm Data, but I'm going to be Lore and help Picard because it's in my best interest to, because these other people are crazy people.
That would have been so good, right?
Yeah, and then maybe later Data comes back and he's like, I have a gift for you guys because you let me live or something like that. Or,
Right.
you got to go back and forth. I understand why they did what they did because that would be exhausting to do my idea. But so you pay him a little bit more. Pay Brent Spiner a little bit more because he's playing two characters.
But you're asking him to act. Like, that's why he's there. Aside from the fact that he's Data and like they had to bring him on. Like he is an actor. He's paid to do a job, and he's not going to get paid for each character he performs.
Right. Although maybe his agent would ask for that. I would ask for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that idea is great where Lord does win and he comes in, and he's like, no, don't shut me off. Don't shut me off. I'll help.
Yeah. And everybody's disappointed, but they're like, okay, we'll use you because you do have a positronic brain that gets us what we need.
Right.
By the way, so that whole scenario where they need Data to program something that will break the code, which they just brushed over, by the way. Just like, yep, I did it. It's done. Okay, let's move the plot next page.
Right.
I feel like Picard has a positronic brain.
Yes, right? Yeah, but I
guess he doesn't have a USB port on the back of his neck. So
there's definitely that, but I think it's also that he's not used to being a computer, so he doesn't know how to be a computer.
Well, they could have been like, look, I know that you don't know, like you don't feel this, but we can use your brain to let the computer, like, and then they connect him. They stick something up his ass and he can talk to the computer.
Right.
There's some science fiction for you because he is a robot.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, that's what this series is based on. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would have been fun.
Yeah.
And then, and maybe he helps Data because he helped Data last time. I don't know. It seems like there's all these places you could have gone instead of them just standing there talking to each other.
Well, and I mean, I get that he's uncomfortable with him being a robot, but also that would have been a great moment at the beginning when he, like when he was shouting at Data, like, I know you're in there. We need your help. Like, have him plug into the computer there and go into that white space, the cloud, the void from Good Place.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember way back in the day, but this was the scene that was spoiled for me when I thought I was watching a behind the scenes thing, and it was the scene with Spot because it was Brent Spiner as Data and Lore in a white room. And so I assumed that it was like a green screen that they were using for later. I didn't realize that it was the cloud until, like the scene. It was at that moment where Data comes back, and he like takes over Lore. And I was like, oh, well, that's spoiled for me before I even started the series.
Right. I don't know. I feel like their handling of bringing Data back, it feels very disorganized. It just feels very, I don't know what the connection is between the one that Picard killed in season 1 versus this one. They just, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel cohesive in any way.
Well, yeah.
People taking no questions.
They're kind of like they're taking those questions and they're answering them in very basic dialogue. Like Picard goes to Data and he's like, last time we saw each other, I helped you die, and
right.
And Data was like, well, yes, that was me, but that's also not me. I'm so much more now. He's like, I'm Data the White, not Data the Gray.
Right. Which is a funny analogy to make because that is also a excruciatingly vague character switch right there. Gandalf the Gray and Gandalf the White, which I do not understand still. It doesn't matter. Don't try and explain it to me because no matter who explains it to me how many times, it doesn't matter. I don't understand what's going on.
All right,
I need to read the books.
I'm going to try really quick. I haven't read the books. To my understanding, Gandalf died. And this is now his like wizard essence before it travels on to the next world, helping them take care of it, which is why he's so distant and just focused on getting the job done. So that way when he's done, he can pass on.
That would be fine with me if anybody said something to those words in the movies. Nobody says anything like that.
Right.
Nobody.
Right. And well, I mean, at the end, when they travel off on the boat, that's not a boat. Like that's them traveling off to the afterlife. That's
easier to infer on that one. But Gandalf just showing up again, having had a shower, it doesn't. I cannot infer anything from that other than like I need more information.
Right.
And I will take what you say as a plausible, but nobody says that. Nobody ever confirms, or at least, or even implies or intimates what Gandalf is doing back alive again.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fair. And I don't know whether or not I'm right. That's what I inferred, and I think I got it from like a video somewhere. But I mean, it also takes you watching all 3 movies to even come to that semblance of a connecting the dots.
Yeah. Let's see. As I had warned you a minute ago, I still don't know. I still don't understand. How did we start talking about that? Oh yeah, Data the Great. He's now Data the White, or is he Data the?
Well, yeah, because he died and he came back. That's what I was saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And he's so much more than he was before. And he's also Elphaba. I don't know. I was hoping that he would say the next line, but I don't know if you know the song, but he goes, "Something has changed within me." And that's the opening line to Defying Gravity in Wicked.
Oh, I don't know that musical.
Right. Okay. But yeah.
I know I think I know the song though.
Right. It was on Glee, if you ever watched that. But
all right, let's talk about Jack.
Okay. That's enough about Data and his musical number.
Yeah. So Jack has this ability to inhabit other people. I'm getting that it can only be, he couldn't have inhabited Vadic or something like that. It has to be not a humanoid form, right?
Yeah.
And so previously on Picard, he inhabited what's her name, Geordi's daughter, and kind of controlled her to fight, right? I got that impression. It's not entirely clear. I guess that she confirms that later, is that he was controlling her and So he basically whoops ass. Like there's a point where he can whoop ass while controlling somebody else, right?
Right. Well, and he had to do the moves at the same time. Yeah.
Right. So, and then he does it again. He's like, I have an idea. I have this special superpower where I can inhabit somebody's body. I can input Picard's codex into the computer and we can take the ship back over. And he does it and he gets found out and he's like one button push away from doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Weedy Vadic comes up and grabs his arm. And I guess maybe she's a shapeshifter, so maybe she's super strong or something like that. And that's why he couldn't push the button. But he feels very paralyzed in this new body. Meanwhile, like I don't understand why he's just standing there. Why doesn't he just push her away and hit the button, right?
Right.
It was so infuriating because he previously showed that he can whoop ass while inhabiting somebody else's body. So it just felt they said, I know that he couldn't, the plot would not allow for him to take over the ship at that point in time. It was too early in the episode.
Right.
So I understand. I understand the plot couldn't support that. But write a scenario that is plausible with the powers that you set forth in the previous episodes. It just feels, again, with this idea that the previous writer didn't know what the other writer was doing.
Right. They were told he has this power where he can control other people. Yeah.
Right. Just kick somebody and get them out of the way and hit the button. You know?
Mm-hmm. It's so funny. Like it feels like they take one step forward in not character development, but in like proper script writing, and then they'll take a step back. You know, they had a moment where Jack is explaining what he can do, and Dr. Crusher, is like, well, he's not hallucinating because blah blah blah. But then LaForge's daughter steps up and she's like, no, he's telling the truth because he did it to me. And, so like they subverted that of nobody believing him by having the witness actually step forward and say like, yeah, he can do that. And then they did what you said, he had this great opportunity to enter it. Like she grabbed his forearm. All he had to do was like bend his wrist forward and push the button.
Yeah.
Been like, oops.
Yeah. Right. And just sacrifice him anyway. Like even if it was possible he was going to die, like maybe that was the dilemma that he faced. Kill this guy and take over the ship, or let the guy live and continue to let Vadic run the ship. Huh?
Yeah.
But guess what? They didn't do that.
They didn't do that.
So yeah, it felt a little, this episode felt a little bit that way. Like little implausible stuff. Like when they take everybody off the ship, when Jack has appeared on the bridge and he's got his little Star Wars detonator, right?
Right.
And he says, okay, get rid of the other people. You don't need them anymore. She says, okay, they serve their purpose. Go put them in the adjacent room. So when we kill you, we can bring them out and shoot them too.
Right.
And they're moving everybody in, and Seven kind of like slips back into the bridge. And Jack is like, what are you doing? I told you to go back in there. And she's like, it's okay. I know what I'm doing. And it's like, you could just open the door and put her back in there. It's not like that door only closes and then it has to lock for an hour.
Right. Yeah.
It was so weird. It was such a weird, lazy way to get her back onto the bridge against everybody else's will, but there being no recourse to fix it. Right.
Well, and did she wind up doing anything? She just stood there with him while the force shield was activated.
Yeah, I don't remember. I felt like she was going to, you're right, she was going to do something, but she just stands there. Yeah. Maybe she's contracted to have a certain amount of screen time.
Right. She's like, I'm staying with you. And he's like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, it did complicate things. When all of the rest of the crew members go off into the ready room or whatever other room that is, Jack kind of looks at Captain Dick and Seven and nods, like a kind of pregnant, knowing nod, like, I got this.
Right.
Go in there. Get in there.
Yeah.
And then she just ignores that. Like they knew, like Captain Dick was probably like, oh, there's something going on. Let's do what they said.
Right. And he's like, well, I can't do it now, Seven. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
This plan was based on you not being here.
You didn't see me winking? You didn't see that?
My head gesture saying go.
All that Borg crap all over your face, and you missed that part. So I don't know, just little stuff like that is just infuriating. Where they have these scenarios they need, like the connective tissue between each scenario. They just couldn't be creative enough to make them plausible.
Mm-hmm.
Made me mad.
Yeah,
I'm mad.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, and the part that's irritating for me, I mean, if you want to go a little bit further, so Raph, there were several moments in this that took me out of it. Like Raffi had swords in the hallway to fight other guys who had swords.
Who had guns.
Well, but they had swords. Like she fought them with their swords.
Well, maybe they have a sidearm of maybe their culture has some, like it's, it's like a Klingon where they have swords, even though they all have blasters. Like it's part of their culture.
Okay.
But they also had these giant rifle laser blasters. It's like, I love it that she just starts winding up and just starts flipping the swords around, like ready to do it.
Yeah.
I'll Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they just shoot her.
Absolutely.
Why didn't they just shoot her?
Right. Like, why were they like, oh, she has swords. We better fight at her level.
She's like, well, our culture requires that we now fight with swords because she has swords.
Yeah, they're not predators.
I know. Maybe they are. But again, with the connective, like they couldn't get creative enough to, okay, maybe they take her, maybe they surprise her or something, right? They surprise her and she had, like, it's close quarters, so they don't have the opportunity to shoot her. But she's like 10 feet away from them, starts winding up her swords and stuff, flipping around. And Worf is just hiding, is like, we have to let her do what she needs to do. And he came to the rescue 3 times, I think.
Well,
in this episode,
right? But I mean, even in that part, he's like, okay, you're going to fight them. I've got my pen.
Yeah, and I forgot all about Worf and Raffi. Forgot. I was like, oh, right. And it's a good thing that they played the very subtle Klingon music after Worf shows up. And how did the guy not see him? Like, was Worf walking behind him the whole time? Like every time the guy would turn around, Worf would like stay behind him, like you do in high school. And here's the thing. I'm okay with some sort of musical heroic thing for Worf. It needed it. It was cool, right? Mm-hmm. I know what they were going for, but they never used that in the show. Granted, they did use it in the movies. Fine. But in terms of this having some rhyming ability with the show, which is what I think they're going for, that kind of element, you can write anything you want. Just write something heroic or give us a snippet of that, something that implies it. We don't need a verse and the chorus, right?
Right. Yeah. Set up the 1+1. We can add it together.
Yeah. And the fact that Worf is standing right there, we'll do the Klingon math.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It feels like, again, it's like they had all of their little scenarios and they needed to get them from point A to point B. And they struggled with that for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I felt like Geordi was really selling all of the stuff he could sell in terms of giving us what was happening, science fiction-y stuff, computer science fiction-y stuff. It just didn't feel connected. It didn't feel like what he was doing was having an effect. It was just sort of like he was just reading the subtitles for us, you know?
Right, right. Like watching the dots turn, and he's like, "We're losing him. This is an ambush."
How can you tell what's happening? It's like, well, the red is, I think the red is lore, and the green.
That would have been I mean, it's not the tone that they were going for, but that would have been really funny if they had the dots wrong.
I get it. That's great. Well, nice to see you, Data. My bad.
Right. Like they think Data wins with all the red dots. They're like, yes, he did it. And then everything turns to blue. They're like, what? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about everything that I was pissed off about.
Okay, so my two things. I was irritated. I loved Vadic's defeat. Like that was fine. But I was irritated that it kind of feels like she was just a villain to be a villain. Like she was just an obstacle, you know? They're like, okay, we beat her. We still have to deal with what's the day? The day. What's the day that they're
Picard Day?
I want to say it's Foundation's Day, but I don't think that's right. Federation Day. Is that what it is? It's Federation Day.
Yeah,
there we
it's
go.
Federation Day.
Okay. She felt like an obstacle to still get to the problem at Federation Day. It didn't feel like they had done anything because they still don't know exactly why she wants Jack. They know she wants Jack because he's got Picard's DNA so they can get into Federation Day celebration, but they don't explain why they need that. And so they didn't stop that plot from happening.
Well, and they also have Picard's old body, which they removed the whatever syndrome part of his brain from that. So, by the way, wouldn't it be great if now that Picard is healed, they reanimate that Picard and there's two Picards walking around? But the other one's a little dim, you know?
Well, yeah, because he's had some of his brain cut out. That kind of makes sense.
Kind of like that Michael Keaton movie where there's like clones and there's copies
Multiplicity?
of a copy. Yeah.
Make it show.
Yeah.
Make it show.
I was surprised that they acknowledged the romance between Deanna and Worf.
That was great.
Like Worf has been pining over Deanna. That was totally unexpected. Because you expect, because there's a point in one of the movies where Worf was like, yeah, you and Riker belong to each other. Mm-hmm. You know, I would always break Deanna's arms anyway. So.
And he was married to Dax for several years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, when did this longing start?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like in Titanic, where Rose has gone through her entire life after being rescued, after Jack selflessly gives his life for her. I don't know if he gives his life. I think he probably would have gotten onto the raft if he could have. But anyway, point being, Rose had a whole life with a whole other husband, potentially multiple husbands of all these other people that she, said she probably loved. I'm assuming this whole idea that when she finally dies, she imagines Jack and not her family. It's just Jack, who's a 20-year-old. I don't know. It seems to betray her whole life. She knew this Jack guy for a week, tops.
Well, yeah. So he didn't live long enough to become the villain. He died the hero, so he was able to be this perfect guy.
Yep.
So yeah, like that was what her future husband had to live up to,
Which he never did.
No, because he didn't die for her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's probably why she had at least 5 husbands over the course of her life. Right. And they all looked suspiciously like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. Well, there was one that she married for like a year and a half that looked like Billy Zane, but
that she found out it was that character.
He's just had a mustache the whole time.
You look surprised and like, no, different. How did we get on that? Oh, Worf and Deanna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Worf was married to Dax, right?
Yeah.
I know. So that was just unexpected to me. It felt like they lingered a little too long.
Well,
like again, as my comment remains, all of you YouTube commenters,
about Worf's growth and how it makes perfect sense.
Aside from him telling us how much he's grown, and aside from the other lines where he's just saying, I would have mailed you the heads, but I was told that was passive aggressive. Where is the part where this is the old Worf, where he's just sort of this, he was already this kind of peaceful, enlightened person on the television show.
So
where is this person?
Maybe that was the rest that he wasn't saying, that he said that he was a pacifist now. Like maybe he meant he's a pacifist aggressivist.
Well, yeah, I mean, in his defense, it would be a passive aggressivist.
Right.
I mean, I think as a Klingon, you're already an aggressivist.
Right.
But again, I don't understand. He's the joke
Right.
on almost every scene that he's in.
Yeah. Well, because
Name me a scene in this last episode where he has some sort of contribution that doesn't include a one-lining joke.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say at the ready room, but you're right. Like that was where he talked about delivering the heads.
The heads. Yep.
Yep.
So explain to me, internet, where was I wrong to begin with? I will accept your $5 donations. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I talked over your.
I'm just waiting for the YouTube short for this. It's gonna be so good. Like
the guy that said clearly this guy doesn't watch the show because this is the rest of the show. He is clearly Worf.
right.
I'm going to find that guy. I'm going to put his name up there. I'm going to ask him again. Where is this Worf that you've been speaking of? Okay, I'm sorry. So continue with your thought.
So the last part too that just kind of irritated me was kind of the last bit of the episode. I don't think that there will be, just because there really hasn't been so far in this show, but it would be nice if there was some guilt on Deanna's side, because I can't imagine there's anything that's good behind this red door. And I feel like her.
What gave you that idea?
Well, I feel like her being in the hallway with him is more symbolic. Like she's not actually able to see the door the way that he can. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
I don't know. She's an empath, or she can.
Well, yeah, I was going to say maybe there is something from previous episodes that have shown that yes, she is physically there, and that's not just symbolism in the show to show that she is there to support him. But
well, that's not a physical space though. Like they're not. They're in his. I got the impression they were in his mind entirely.
Yeah. But like the way I've always pictured it is like she's just helping them get through their emotions, and she is not in this visual imagery in his mind with him. Like she can't see that door the way that he can. She just recognizes that there is this door that he's been blocking, and she's like, we're going to do this together. And so it would just be great if there was some kind of guilt, like once we do find out what's behind the door, presuming that it is bad, that she's like, this is kind of my fault. I pushed him to open that door. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that it's just going to be the door is open, and now we have to figure out what to do.
I have a feeling it's going to be something familiar to us.
I agree.
It can't be something new. Maybe it's Wesley. It's like, you stole my mother from me.
Yeah. Or the scorpions, the bug things that crawled into their throats.
In
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy?
Yeah.
That would be a deep cut, dude.
But it would be just it's a creepy episode, ends on a cliffhanger. It would be so great if that's what it was. I don't think it is, because I feel like that would have been spoiled somewhere. Like, Picard pulled off an amazing deep cut.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's got to be something, right? It's got to be something from the old show. I can't imagine them having this giant door that we've been waiting to see whatever lies behind it. And it's not something familiar to us. Some sort of villain. It's not lore. What else? It's not going to be Q. Q's dead. Although they've proved in this show that nobody can die. You can always bring somebody back. So,
right.
It's just it could be Wesley. So our prediction is Wesley or the bugs from Conspiracy.
Yeah. Wesley would be amazing if he's just on a murderous rampage. Given how we saw him in season 2, that seems less likely.
Well, there's 2 of Wesleys now.
Oh, right. They pulled the Riker maneuver.
Just keep pulling on this. Keep on this thread. It's not going anywhere. I'm trying to make Wesley work as a villain in my head. I don't see it happening.
Right. But anyway, so I actually like this episode. I don't think it's a proper Star Trek episode, but I did enjoy the episode. But what really irritated me was just how the last episode was like, do you want to know who you really are, Jack? And then this episode was like, we're going to find out who you really are, Jack. And there's 2 episodes left.
I know. It'd be great if they just kept doing that until even at the very last episode, it's like, finally, Jack, here is the door you've been waiting. The other 3 doors, not the real doors.
Right.
I'm okay with this chaining together these episodes like this. I mean, I guess you need it. I mean, I understand. It feels like, again, it just feels very incohesive. I don't have a good sense of the stakes. All we know is that there's this looming threat. And I feel like by episode 8, we should know what that threat is to have the stakes feel grounded. And that don't feel grounded. Like, I don't know even if there is a threat.
Right.
I mean, we know there's a threat, but I don't, like, in terms of what our crew can handle, right? We've handled some pretty bad things before.
Right. Well, and
geriatric or not.
And to be fair, I think the reason why this is more frustrating is because Lower Decks is more episodic. So the episodes were fine by themselves. They didn't, you didn't need to watch the whole thing altogether to understand what was happening. But episode 8 of season 4 of Lower Decks was Caves. It was a bottle episode, before we got into episode 9 and 10, which was the big finale. So to not have everything revealed by episode 8, it's fine if you aren't building it up this much. But we've had 8 episodes, of Jack being this important thing, and we still don't know why.
Right. I mean, we understand what his powers are, but we don't know why they would need those things, especially considering it seems like they have quite a bit of might behind them.
Yeah.
The bad guys, whoever these people are. Because this isn't necessarily the being that Vadic summons with her wrist. I feel like we don't really know what that thing looks like.
Right.
So is that what he looks like? How big is he? It's kind of like in Star Wars, The Force Awakens, where I forgot the bad guy's name in that, where they present him as kind of this gigantic person.
Mm-hmm.
But he ends up just being regular sized. What is that guy's name?
Snoke.
Snoke. Yep. I just thought of that just now. It's kind of like that. Like, we don't have a sense. The bat, like, you can only do that a couple of times before it starts to lose its kick.
Right.
Its bite. So, yeah. I mean, we still have 2 episodes left. So I'm not going to stop watching.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I don't think so either.
Are you?
It's kind of what we're doing.
But you're right. Not really a proper Star Trek episode. Nothing really happens science fiction-y, really.
Yeah. And standalone, there is still Jack's moral debate of, moral dilemma of whether or not he should turn himself in. And everybody's telling him no, and he's like, I'm going to. But it's treading water at this point. It's still the same. Everybody's telling you no, and he keeps saying, but I've got to.
Right. Yeah.
So
I did like that there's a fart fan on the Titan on the bridge. The thing where they open the doors and suck all the air out.
No. I thought you meant like somebody who just really loved farts.
That's what you thought?
Yeah, fart fan? Yeah. I'm a fan of farts.
I guess that's my fault. Yep.
Yeah. And right. And I mean, that's a great way to get rid of the villain. And, but like, again, that's now canon. That is a thing that all starships have.
Well, and the whole view screen opens up.
Right.
Yet another point of failure on the bridge, the part where most people shoot at. It just feels. Do you need that?
Right. Do you need a hinge and a sliding door where there's going to be the most amount of disruption?
It would have been great if Captain Dick walks out and says, "I told you there was a use for that."
Right.
Right.
Yeah, or something. Like, I'm really glad they put that on Titan, and only the Titan.
That was an upgrade that we had to pay for, but I'm glad we did that.
Right.
By the way, they kind of pulled an Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade a little bit, because when Indiana Jones is caught with his dad and they're talking about Marcus to the Nazis, whatever that guy's name, the Nazi liaison, and they're looking for Marcus because he's got the book, or he's got the Grail book or something like that. And they said, Marcus, that guy can speak 17 languages. He'll blend in, disappear. You'll never see him again. With any luck, he's got the Grail already. And they cut to him. He's like, excuse me, do you know where I can find? It's like, it's a great cut. And they did the same thing with this, where Riker is saying, Picard has probably already pulled a genius move and got her on the ropes already. And then it cuts to her spinning around in the in the bridge
while everybody's
chair,
lined up. Yeah.
Yep.
Poor form, Picard. Like it was just. This is not a show where it's supposed to be kind of lighthearted but serious stakes. Like everything is dark. The dialogue, the mood, and I mean even Worf, like with his jokes, yes, they are jokes, but he's playing them straight. And it's just the audience who is reacting to them in a humorous way. I mean, I guess except for the passive aggressive part where everybody was chuckling, but like. Right. But the tension is done at that point, So like it was just a very weird, incongruous scene between the tone.
Yeah, that whole reunion scene could have just been cut. I would have been fine with it. We didn't need it. It felt so long, where every single character had to say to every other character how much they missed them and thought about them.
Somebody should have said something along the lines of, "We can exchange niceties when this is done. We still have a ticking clock of Federation Day." Something along those lines, and they shouldn't just be sitting there going, oh man, I haven't been with you guys in so long.
I know, right? Like your hair, look at it.
Right?
Oh, that would have been a great line for Worf.
Yes.
It's like, perhaps we should save the niceties when we're not in peril,
Right.
So I'm kind of half expecting Vadic to come back. She's going to pull a T-1000 and recongeal herself together somehow.
I know, right? But how? Like, I've been thinking about that too. Like, right. Again, it was just it was a great killing of a villain. But it was too soon. Like otherwise she was just an obstacle, and I don't understand why she was the baddie that they were trying to follow if she didn't provide any more information, and that didn't accomplish. They didn't kill the bad guy, but now there's still a bomb. Like they had to get to Federation Day anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't feel, again, that's the cohesiveness that I feel like it lacks.
Right.
Is that we don't know what's happening. And so we just feel like she's that turd that won't flush.
Right. Yeah. She just keeps.
What's that from? You're a turd that won't flush. That's from.
The two
That's
things.
not from Back to the Future 3, is it?
I don't think so.
I guess they didn't have.
Well, yeah, like the only person who could have said that was Michael J. Fox, and that does not sound like something he would have said.
It's from something. Listeners, this is a job for the listeners. What's that from?
Wow, dude.
What?
That is a deep cut.
What? The flushing thing?
Yeah.
What's it from?
What do you want to know? Do you want to know who said it? The actor who said it? Like, do you want to know the actor, the character, or the movie?
I'm sure I'll know once you.
Dennis Hopper.
Oh, it's Waterworld. That's right. Would you have known the character's name?
No, just because I just looked it up and like it says who the character was.
What's the character's name? I forgot. Hopper.
Right. I'm so sad they didn't grab Dennis Hopper to be Hopper. Like that would have been perfect.
I know.
Deacon.
Oh, right. Deacon. Good name.
Yeah.
This is the second time that movie has come up on this podcast.
What was the first?
I don't know.
Oh, you just remember mentioning it before.
Yeah.
I like that we're kind of a fan of like the less mainstream movies, like Super Mario Brothers, all the VanDamm movies.
Hey, VanDamm was a A-lister for a little while.
Yeah, but we know him from his like 90s stuff, like his straight to video Double Impact.
No, I think those were like his A-list times. Like his early 90s was theater stuff.
I thought he was an 80s action hero. No, you're like...
I think he bridged the gap. I think Time Cop was his last big thing.
Okay.
And that was mid-90s.
Right.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, Time Cop and Street Fighter. Those are the two for me.
After that, we're like, no, I don't need VanDamm anymore. I think I'm done.
I mean, when you watch the best, the rest is just kind of... When you've had steak, it's hard to go back to burger.
I mean, the best thing he did after those was that commercial for Volvo trucks.
Oh, sure.
He does the splits between the two trucks.
Right. Well, no, there was a show he did for, I think.
All right, enough of this.
That was.
Let's get the hell out of here. You've been Jonathan.
And you've been Paul.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.
I think that's a But you already knew that.